by Gerald Manley Hopkins. I am like a slip of comet, scarce worth discovery in some corner seen, bridging the slender difference of two stars, come out of space or suddenly engendered by heady elements, for no man knows. But when she sights the sun, she grows and sizes and spins her skirts out, while her central star shakes its cocooning mists, and so she comes to fields of light. Millions of traveling rays pierce her. She hangs upon the flame-cased sun and sucks the light as full as Gideon's fleece. But then her tether calls her. She falls off. And as she dwindles, shreds her smock of gold amidst the sistering planets until she comes to single Saturn, last and solitary, and then goes out into the cavernous dark. So I go out, my little suite is done. I have drawn heat from this contagious sun to not ungentle death, now forth I run. All right, and that was a fantastic poem by Gerald Manley Hopkins. He was a 19th century English poet, Roman Catholic convert, and Jesuit priest. He is apparently one of the leading Victorian poets, although honestly, I apparently was not aware of his name. And this actually was a poem he wrote back in 1864. So September 13th, 1864, less than a month after the passing of Tempel's comet, actually. And he was actually out, I believe, camping or hiking or something of that. He was out in nature, and he saw this up in the night sky. And as a poet, he wrote this poem scarcely a month later. And here we have it still today. So if you guys are not quite aware, it's pretty clear, I think, just by his, immense amount of verbosity, we're talking about comets today. But first of all, let's see, what are you actually listening to? SG2 on Space, right? We're a show that is talk all about space, really anything related, every Wednesday night, live 6:30 to 7 p.m. Houston time, U.S. Central, in other words. And remember, daylight savings time does apply here. So if you're somewhere else in the world where that doesn't apply, adjust your clock accordingly if you want to listen to it live. So with that said, hopefully you're listening to us on facebook.com/The Shen Show. If you want to watch previous episodes, go on YouTube and search for SG2 on Space, and you will see a lot of the previous episodes. Lastly, with my intro, I will say support the show on patreon.com/SG2 on Space, as the green squirrel on the bottom says. Just for a few bucks a month, you can get your name shouted out, and you can even get a few seconds in here depending on how much you donate. So try doing some of that to help. With that said, let's bring in my co-host Leonard Kramer, if he's around, which he is.
Hey.
I see you got your headband on again. That's great. Okay.
It's a statement.
It is a statement.
Or not.
Yes, it's definitely a statement. I completely concur with that. So I think we got into this topic because last time we were actually talking about the solar atmosphere, the solar wind, and so forth. And then we broached the topic about comets. And then you mentioned that comets actually have two tails. And then I was like, oh, comets, that's interesting. We never, I've never talked about it on this show. And frankly, I think it's something which most people would be interested in because it's one of the things you see. And it's glorious. So let me ask you this. Let's start out. What are comets, Leonard?
Comets are small bodies that we observe in our solar system. Presumably they're in other solar systems as well. We have no idea really, but just based upon inference about the model, the one model of a solar system that we do have, they are made out of primarily ice, actually water ice, and some other substances that and containing dust and rocky material that's left over from the formation of the solar system. Presumably, most of them come from a region of the border between the solar and the interstellar space called the Oort cloud, and most of them that we are familiar with are in highly eccentric orbits. That means very eccentric means it's an ellipse, and it's oval shaped, and
Right.
one focus of the oval is at the sun, and the other focus is out there yonder. Um, when they enter the solar system, they speed up because they're falling toward the sun, but they have enough angular momentum, orbital angular momentum, that they don't actually collide with the sun. I think that's been observed a few times, that comets have been absorbed by the sun. There's been at least a couple of comets that have been observed colliding with Jupiter, and that happened about 30 years ago. What else? When they come in, the
Actually,
ice.
I was going to interrupt a second since
Yeah.
I have this wonderful book called More Things in Heaven and Earth, and it's by David H. Livy, who was one of the
Levy,
co-discoverers, I guess, with Shoemaker for the Shoemaker comet that split into pieces and struck Jupiter.
That's correct. I think in 94, 93 or 94. I remember I had just finished graduate school at about that time, and there was a lot of discussion about what was going to happen. I remember one of the professors said that it's actually going to collide with Jupiter as the time got closer. It's going to collide with Jupiter, and it'll be on the dark side of Jupiter. So we would not actually observe the entrance, but that the light from it, he expected the light from it might illuminate the moons of Jupiter. I'm not sure whether that was observed or not, but I thought that was interesting. It did leave like a scar, kind of like a dirty cloud in the clouds of a dirty area in the clouds of Jupiter for a while. But that's we're getting a little bit off of the topic.
Right. Sorry, that was a little tangential. My fault.
When they orbit the Earth, they come in all different inclinations relative to the ecliptic. The ecliptic is the plane of the solar system. All the planets are they're all kind of more or less in the same plane, and comets come in from all different orientations. Most of them are in orbit. I think about a quarter to a fifth of them are in what are called parabolic orbits, which means that, they are in they're in parabolic orbits, which means that their eccentricity is greater than 1. So they're not closed. They're not closed orbits. They come from some stationary position way out in the Oort cloud, and by some perturbation or other, they come in and they speed up as they're entering the solar system. They usually hang around for a few weeks to months, and then they're gone. They become visible because of the sunlight heating the frozen material and casting it outward. Their orbits are often perturbed by the vents, the explosions and the venting of this material that's coming off of them. Let me see, what else can we know? Oh, there's two tails, because the gaseous material, water and methane and whatever other materials that are coming off of the comet, will ionize in the ultraviolet. The sun's radiation, sunlight radiation out in space has a lot of primarily ultraviolet light that will strip the electrons from the atoms and make them electrically charged, and they get picked up by the solar wind. So the solar wind is the sun's atmosphere, and it's blowing away all the time. The sun doesn't keep its atmosphere; it's blowing outward constantly, and it's also a plasma because it's a heated gas with electrons stripped from the matter and from the ions, and that fills the interplanetary medium. So there's two tails. One is the dust and material, which is not really affected by the solar wind. It is.
Yeah, I was gonna say, let's see if we can put up a little video showing the
Two tails.
The tail.
Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it.
I'm up for that.
Comet with 6 tails. Little did they know that the streaks behind the comet could be related to the origins of the solar system. In time, scientists theorized that the dust in a comet's tail had been combed out into bands known as striae. How the striae formed, however, was still a mystery. How dust behaves in a comet's tail is exciting because comets are the leftover building blocks of the solar system. By watching the material clump and fragment in the tail, we can gain insights into the same process that forms dust into planets, moons, or asteroids. In 2007, researchers were able to capture images of Comet McNaught with NASA and ESA's SOHO and Stereo spacecraft. Today, researchers are introducing the latest step in analyzing footage like this, a new image mapping technique. When the technique is applied, it seamlessly combines perspectives from multiple spacecraft, giving us a clearer picture of how the dust trail changes over time. In the processed footage, we see the new striae form. Their alignment relative to the sun indicates that the star might play a role in striae formation, as well as fragmentation. We can also see how the clean lines are disrupted when the comet crosses the current sheet, the boundary where the solar wind's magnetic field changes orientation. Notice how the defined lines become broken. This tells us that the dust is charged, and the characteristic lines of the magnetic field in the solar system are affecting it. Scientists can use the new processing tool to study dust behavior in other comets. When it comes to learning how comets can teach us about our origins, we've only just caught this by the tail.
All right. Well,
that's fantastic. That was good. I like that.
I mean, that looked beautiful. That's what I thought. So, yeah, I mean, I think we touched on this last time, and you just stated it again, the comet's tail, and this video showcases that as well.
So that video emphasized the dust that's coming off and made some interesting observations that I hadn't seen before. That they're electrically charged. They're carrying a static charge, and that's interesting.
Oh,
that's
you
very
learned
interesting. Yeah, I'm going to check that out. But you know, classically it's known that there's two tails, the dust and the ions that are coming off, and they are observed to go in different directions based upon the orientation of the orbit and so forth. And so that's a lot. That's what's to be known about comets.
Let me ask you. So one of my favorite words describing the solar system is an Oort cloud. I like saying that.
Sure, everyone does.
Yeah.
I say it all the time. Oort cloud.
I have no idea how you're going to use it.
Yeah, I was in Target earlier, and I was talking about the Oort cloud. Isn't everyone doing that?
Yeah. I just randomly start spouting for no good reason.
So
just oh yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I was just you were probably gonna ask me to tell you something about the Oort cloud. So
yeah, I mean,
it appears to be a roughly spherical neighborhood around the solar system that is very far away. It's hundreds of astronomical units away, and it's leftover material that is in orbit. I have air quotes around the sun. It is under the influence of the sun, but it is in such a place where the sun's gravity well is so flat that it's really on the boundaries between the sun's influence and interstellar space. And so this is apparently stuff that was ejected, when the solar system formed. And this is a speculation. We don't have any observations to confirm this, other than we do observe protoplanetary disks in astronomical observations, but that as the matter, as the gas that the solar system formed out of condensed, a lot of material would fall in and then would be ejected. It would fall in and then gravitationally interact with the central material, which was the nascent sun that's forming and the planets, and then it would get ejected, and it's still out there. So it's material that's left. It's apparently material that's left over from the formation of the solar system, and that's principally where most of the comets come from. The ones that come back and are periodic are some comets that have been captured. In other words, they've come in and then they interact with principally Jupiter and Saturn, and they become captured, and so they go into these elliptical orbits that have been observed throughout history.
Okay, so I got this fun cartoon of the Oort cloud video. Have you seen it? Should we put it up? Let's put it up.
No. Okay.
Let's put it up.
On the Kuiper Belt. Beyond the fringes of the Kuiper Belt is the Oort cloud.
There we are.
Unlike the orbits of the planets and the Kuiper Belt, which are pretty flat like a disk, it's a giant spherical shell surrounding the
Yeah, you heard that here first.
and Kuiper Belt objects. Like a big bubble with thick walls around our solar system. It's made of icy pieces of space debris the sizes of mountains and sometimes larger. This is where some comets come from. Voyager 1 spacecraft took 35 years to leave the sun's magnetic influence. It's traveling 1 million miles each day. At that speed, it will take 300 years to reach the inner layer of the Oort cloud. And then it will take 30,000 to get through it all. It's that thick. Find out more about our solar system.
Pretty amazing, I think. Like how just the vastness of the Oort cloud is
right.
It's like, wow, unimaginable.
So those are all a bunch of, basically we think those are all comets. And if we were able to study them, if we were able to study a big variety of objects out there, we'd probably see a lot of interesting things. I expect that that it's not just all ice. It's probably other things like, different composite materials and so forth. And I say that because the solar system is like that. Every place we go in the solar system, every planet is different, and yet the way the solar system formed was from this gassy cloud from billions of years ago that was created in a supernova explosion. And yet every planet is different, and even on our planet, we see different things everywhere, and so it didn't have to be like that. It seems like
I was gonna say it would. I agree that there's so much variety. In terms of comets, though, it would. Is it actually? Let me venture this question for you. So we've discovered a lot of exoplanets. Is there a way for us to detect exocomets? Do you have an? Where's that?
Well, I think that the Hubble Space Telescope, has observed some very large objects that have tails associated with them, but we'd never be able to see. I think with the current technology, to see the kind of comets that we see in our solar system, because they're just too far away and too faint.
Is there a size limitation on the comets? Like from what I conceive of, it's a remnants, right? So it has to be tiny. Like how big are they?
They're the size of mountains, maybe the size of Mount Everest or smaller.
Okay.
And I don't have any information for you about what the maximum size is. I don't think any are bigger than say, the than large objects like that.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
they're smaller than asteroids.
Makes sense. So, like, I want to bring up two more things. One is meteor showers. Are they related to comets or
Yes,
completely different?
yes, they actually are. Well, meteor showers are typically the ones that we usually see, the ones that are periodic every year, are associated with different comets that are in orbit around the sun. When a comet enters the solar neighborhood, it's sloughing off all of this dust and material, and that will distribute along the orbit. In other words, each particle, and these are the size of a grain of sand, approximately, that will distribute all along the orbit. And when the Earth is traversing its orbit around the sun, we encounter those orbital regions, and it starts to hold on. Okay. You know how it is. This is the 21st century.
I know. Look. Go on.
And so the meteor showers that we see are manifestations of the Earth passing through the orbits of comets with dust all distributed along it, and they're cool. And so they'll enter little grain. So the meteors that you see are little grains of dust from comets. Occasionally, large objects enter as meteors, and these are generally, these would be associated with asteroid material.
That makes a lot of sense.
But that's a good question. I'm glad we didn't leave that out.
No, I mean that's one of the. I mean, people have been looking at meteors or shooting stars all the time, right? And
that's right. Yeah,
on a star or whatever. Speaking of which, I find it funny, and this leads to my second question. There's been a lot of folklore and a lot of superstition. I'm going to use that word regarding comets.
Yeah.
Why is that? And like, what does that? What does that entail?
I guess because they're so rare, they were not, from ancient times, the periodicity of comets wasn't noticed. I don't think the ancients, in classical times, recognized that the comets were periodic, like Halley's Comet and so forth, and took Edmund Halley to look. I think historically he looked at a lot of comet sightings and was able to show that they were coming periodically. And so I guess a rare event that you don't expect and looking up the sky, which for 200,000 years that's what we're doing. For 200,000 years, humankind didn't really know what we were looking at. We didn't even know what the moon was. It took Galileo to look at the moon with a telescope, and he could see craters and mountains, and it was like, oh,
wow, yes,
it's a place. It's a place like on Earth, and so I think in ancient times, the heavens, what was up in the sky was considered utterly different from what was on Earth. And so things that were going on there were thought to control our lives in some deep psychological manner. And I'm not an authority on that anymore than anyone else, really. So.
No, I mean, that makes sense. Like, historically speaking, people would, at least definitely for comets, people would attribute these passings to like events. Typically, at least in Europe, like negative events that would happen, right? Or a foretelling of some kind of disaster. which I'm like, I don't know. I think if I lived back then, I wouldn't have thought that. But hey,
You don't think so?
well, I think I would be like, I doubt it. I mean, look, it's just something passing through the sky. What does that have to do with what's down here? So,
I don't know.
All right. So, with that said, you know what else goes through the sky? Aliens.
Oh yes, aliens. I forget this all the time. I can't keep that, in.
All right. So, okay, it may not be aliens, but something unexplained. All right. Let's see. I actually have this rather interesting video. And for once, it's not one of those blurry ones where you can just make up stuff. So this was actually seen by hundreds of people, and this happened about, I believe, in the 1997 on March 13th. So let's see if we can watch a short clip of this.
Let me see. Lay it on me.
4 years since a strange and stunning sight, unidentified lights flying over the valley in a uniform pattern. Thousands of you saw them, and they've been fascinating us ever since. After the 1997 case, there have been dozens of other UFO sightings here and all across the Southwest.
As Team 12's William Pitts shows us, we've seen big bombshell revelations and admissions over the past 18 months or so that some think may eventually lead to answers about the Phoenix Lights.
Bright lights in a V shape, maybe a massive ship miles wide, right over Phoenix. Hundreds, maybe thousands of people saw them on March 13th, 1997.
Look at that. There's another one.
They're lined up in a pattern.
24 years later,
I got 4 of them.
we still don't know what the Phoenix Lights were.
Major sighting here.
But now a lot more people are taking them and other unidentified flying objects more seriously. Dr. Lynn Kitai watched the Phoenix Lights arrive. She's one of the few people with photographs of them, and for years she stayed quiet, afraid of being branded crazy.
Now that the military and the government have actually come forward to say, yes, we are studying them. The Pentagon has been studying them.
In the last year and a half, there have been some massive bombshells in the UFO community. For starters, the U.S. government says they're real, and they were researching them.
There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA.
Like these videos from the U.S. Navy. After they were leaked, the U.S. military confirmed they were real.
This is not a joke. This is real. Something. Even though I don't know what they are, I just want to know who they are, who's driving these things.
For years.
Okay, you can watch the rest of this later on your own time. So when I say that, I'm talking to the observers, the watchers of the show. But in any case, this is a rather interesting case where, it's not just like one person or like 5 people who saw it, but literally hundreds of people saw it, if not over 1,000. Which really lends this air of mystery on. I mean, obviously there's something there. Who knows? That's my take. Oh, what is this? Oh, I guess more of this stuff.
That's a simulation.
That one was definitely a simulation.
Yeah.
So
when it's very clear, it's always a simulation. So I did hear once an explanation that those lights in Phoenix had to do with Air Force activity dropping flares. In other words, planes would drop a series of flares, and they were on parachutes, and the parachutes when they would gradually come down, and so people saw them do that. They disappeared behind a mountain one at a time as they came down. But I don't know. I mean, maybe it's aliens. Maybe aliens. Maybe extraterrestrial visitors only appear to people with mental with emotional and mental who are suffering from.
Right. Well, I mean, I was thinking it's the classic case where you cannot, just because you can't explain something doesn't mean you have to automatically attribute it to a hallucination.
That's right. That's right. I'm up for that. I agree. I think that.
I'm going to go with I know we're running short on time, but I want to point out like an example of that, which are, Leonard, have you heard of earthquake lights?
Yes.
Okay. For our viewers, they're basically, very succinctly said, they're lights that happen shortly before or after an earthquake, and they come from like the gases that come out of the ground, right?
Maybe could be an electrical phenomenon, piezoelectric.
Okay. Point is, it's related to what's happening, like plate tectonic wise.
Mm-hmm.
So for a very long time, when people saw these lights, even thousands of them, sometimes millions, all right, like a lot of people, they will see them. Scientists had no idea what they were, right? And they would just tell these people, "Hey, you're hallucinating. All of you, mass hallucinations."
I'm not crazy. All of you are.
Exactly. And then once they figured out, hold on a second. Oh wow, there's stuff that the ground could actually interact with the atmosphere. Then they're like, "Oh, you're not hallucinating." But for like a number of decades, they just told all these people that they're hallucinating. So definitely don't want to be that case. I just like to say, hey, these things are up there, most likely. I mean, a lot of people have seen them. We just don't know what they are. So
it would be extraordinary, and it's plausible that extraordinary events just leave ordinary evidence, like people seeing them.
Yep. All right. So with that said, what's the catchphrase?
Keep looking up, or I always fail this test.
Maybe
look up. Oh, it's down there. Look up, because you never know what you will see.
All right, good. Look up, because you never know what you will see. Thank you, Leonard, and thank you everybody for tuning in. Remember, follow me, facebook.com/The Shen Show. Follow us, I guess, since Leonard's a co-host here, and there you go. Support the show. www.patreon.com/SG2OnSpace. And next time we'll be live is next Wednesday night, 6:30 to 7 p.m. Central Time, U.S. Central Time. So with that, take care, everybody, and look up.
Be well. Stay safe. Stay healthy.